I put my head down for 6 months and I worked really, really hard and document the process. And then after these 6 months, I come out stronger than ever, right? So that was the plan, right? That was the vision, and we executed. What's up, dogs? Welcome back to the documentary. Today, we're gonna actually do a flashback. We're gonna look at where I was at before I got here, before I started living luxurious. Because it wasn't always like this. It wasn't always like this. Before I got here, I lived in an RV for 5 months straight in Phoenix, Arizona, in the middle of the summer, about 120 degrees every single day. So in this video, we're gonna talk about what drove me to move into an RV for 5 months, what I learned while I was in that RV, and what drove me to move out of the RV. So this is about April, May 2022. I'm moving out of my apartment. My lease is up in my apartment in May, and I knew one thing. I knew I wasn't gonna stay in my apartment. I wanted to move into a house that I bought sub to, so I actually had a house under contract. I was gonna move to Houston in a house subject to. We stopped this guy's auction the day before. We'll actually get into that story in another video, but we stopped that guy's auction and he ended up wanting to sell this property to somebody else. He tried to sell it to somebody else behind my back, and I had to switch the plans up. We couldn't move to Houston anymore. So I'm just sitting there and I'm like, dang, what do I do? So I got a call from one of my good friends, Logan, and I was just telling him the situation. And he's like, well, what are you gonna do? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know yet. I guess I'm gonna figure it out. I didn't want to go back to Pennsylvania. I knew that much. I didn't want to go back there for a long time because I've been living on my own for the past 4 or 5 years now. Since I got out of high school, actually, I've been living on my own for honestly the past 6, 7 years. Since I've been 18, I've been living on my own. So I'm like, I'm not about to go back home. I'm gonna figure it out, but I don't know what I'm gonna do yet. And crazy because Logan actually just bought a house in Phoenix, Arizona, and it had a guest house. I already seen the property. I walked it with him the first day he bought it, and it had a guest house on the property. And I'm just sitting there talking to Logan, and just out of nowhere, he's like, why don't you just live in the guest house? And I'm like, you do that? Yeah, of course. Yeah. And right then and there, I made a decision. I'm like, I'll move to Phoenix. Yeah, of course. I'm thinking, because I knew Logan was going to move into that house. And I'm like, man, to live that close to one of my friends for sure. And Logan, this dude is super smart, super knowledgeable. I look at him as one of my mentors, and I learn from him every single day. So it was a no-brainer. I'm like, yes, of course. I'm going to move into that guest house, and I will live there for, I don't know, until I find a house. But I was like, yes, right away, without even thinking about it. And he's like, all right, cool. Let me just talk to Katie. That's his wife. Let me talk to Katie and see if it's cool. So let's see if we can make that work. So I'm like, all right, cool. So I wait for his call back. He calls me back, and he's like, yeah, let's do it. I just got to talk to you about rent. I was talking to Katie, and we're talking about the rent, how much I was comfortable paying. I told them it was pretty close to what I was paying at my apartment in Maryland. I told them that, and we were just a little bit far apart. They were expecting to make more than what I wanted to pay, and she was like, okay, well, let me go talk to Logan and see what we can do. I'm like, all right, cool. I wait for that call back. They call me again, and Katie's like, okay, so we're a little far apart. The guest house probably won't work. But Logan had an idea. He said, what if we buy an RV and you move into the RV, we'll connect it to the property? And at first I was like, man, an RV? Like, I told her straight up, I was like, I've never been in an RV before. And she was like, yeah, me neither. And I was like, I paused for a little bit. I was like, let's do it. I said, fine, sign me up, let's do it. And she's like, all right, cool. And we just set up a date, a time to go. I ended up going to, well, yeah, we had a date and time to go. And then, yeah, I just made the decision. But one, I talked about this before. I go with my gut a lot, right? And my gut was just telling me, say yes, say yes. And I said yes. And I thought about all the good reasons as to why I should be going there afterwards, which I don't recommend doing that, but that's just how I operate sometimes. My gut never lies to me. So I was listening to my gut. It told me to say yes. I said yes, and I'm thinking, you know, me moving out to Phoenix is probably one of the best things that I can do. Right, I'm in a stage where I was recently single. I was in a relationship for the past 2 years. I'm single now, and I just wanted to change for one. Right, I wanted to change the scenery. So I'm like, yeah, why not? Two, my mom lives out here. My mom, my 8-year-old brother, that they've lived on the other side of the country from me for the past 5-6 years. So I'm like, yeah, of course. I want to see my mom, have a relationship with my brother, and I also have a bunch of family out here. And not only that, my family's here. The rest of my family's here. The Sub-2 community, my mentor Pace, and all my other friends who are in real estate and doing the same thing that I'm doing. Right, the power of proximity. Arizona is the real estate mecca. There are a lot of big players in the real estate game that live in Phoenix, and there's a lot going on out here. The market is hot, and it's just constantly growing. Right, so Phoenix was just a great choice for me to live here temporarily. I don't know how long I'm going to live here. My overall desire is to move whenever, wherever I want, right? So I don't want to stay in a place for longer than 3-4 years. And I need to figure out how the heck am I going to get there, right? At that time, I had some money, but I really didn't. I was broke, and I was still waiting on a couple of deals to close for me to get across country comfortably. And mind you, I have a decent sized dog. I have a pit bull that he's going with me wherever, right? He needs to travel with me, and I had to figure out how I was going to get him across the country. So I have a dog. I had all my belongings, right? My whole life that I had to bring across the country. Now, typically I would just drive, but for reasons that I'll speak about in another video, I couldn't drive across the country. And so what did I need to do? I went back home because my lease was up at the new apartment. So I went to live with my grandparents for a couple months. Ended up being 2 months. No, it was a month, good 30 days that I stayed with my grandparents. Supposed to be like 2 weeks, but it ended up being 30 days. I was just there trying to come up with a plan, right? One, I was waiting on a couple of deals to close so I could get across the country. I had to buy a plane ticket for myself. I was thinking about shipping my stuff across. I had to transport my dog, which is expensive. I did not know how expensive it was to transport a dog from from Pennsylvania to Phoenix, which, I mean, it sounds expensive talking about it now because driving across, that's not an easy task with a dog. But man, that thing was expensive. It was like $3,000 to send my dog from from Pennsylvania to Phoenix. So I had to figure that out. I had to come up with the money to do that. And I had to come up with my own flight and everything like that. So it took me a little while to actually get across the country. It's crazy because actually Keston, who in the last video we talked about gave me the advice that told me that I was a douchebag, he's now my high performance coach at this time. And one of the things that we talked about before going to Phoenix was being extremely intentional, right? And that was one of the things that was big to me because it's easy to become one of the people out here that just go to these meetups every single week and it's not working, right? There's something called over networking, and that is very possible to do, especially in Phoenix when there's a meetup happening every single day of the week. If you go to every single meetup to see the same people, in my opinion, it's almost just like going to the club every weekend, right? You see the same people doing the same thing every single weekend. Yes, networking is good, right? But if you're over networking and you're not actually working, that's a problem. Okay, so yes, the meetups are good. The meetups are amazing out here. You get to see people who are on YouTube, people who are highly respected in the industry, become friends with them, meet with them, have conversations with them, work with them, do deals with them. That's awesome, right? But if you're not actually working yourself, and if you're going to these meetups to take pictures and just be like a fanboy, then that's an issue. And I had this conversation with Keston where he told me there's gonna be a time and place for all of that, right? So get it out your system when you first get there, because when I got here, it was a mastermind weekend. So there's a lot of Sub-2 students out here. There's a lot of events going on. He's like, get it out your system, but then make sure you get locked in and go to work. Because my whole vision for living in an RV for 6 months was to make this a launch pad type of thing, right? This was, I put my head down for 6 months and I work really, really hard and document the process. And then after these 6 months, I come out stronger than ever, right? Come up living how I am right now. You know what I'm saying? So that was the plan, right? That was the vision, and we executed, right? So when I got here, it was a lot tougher than I expected. First of all, I've never been in an RV. I've never touched the RV. I've never stepped foot in an RV before. And it's funny because I was talking to Logan one day on the phone. He was making sure like I had all the stuff and everything was good. I understood how to actually dump like the waste and stuff and all that. We'll talk about that in a bit. But I had a conversation with Logan and he's like, yeah, so have you ever been in an RV before? I'm like, no. He's like, good, me neither. And I'm like, okay. He's like, we'll figure this out together, which really meant Daryl figured this out and just let me know how you did it. And I'm like, all right, cool. Because Logan, he wasn't there, right? So it was just me. So I'm like, all right, cool. Let's figure this out. If you didn't know, on an RV, if you ever wondered where the piss and shit goes, you have to dump it yourself. I didn't know this until I lived in an RV, right? So I actually have a crazy story, funny story, nasty story that, can I talk about this? Can I talk about like shit? This is what the RV looked like, right? And it was small, right? It was a really compacted space. It was tight. It had a bed, it had a toilet, had a kitchen, and a couch. Like that's what it had. It had exactly what you need to go to sleep, use the bathroom, and eat. Right? So it was what I needed to focus and lock in and live really light for the next 5 and 6 months. One surprise that I had was the fact that once you piss and shit in the RV, it doesn't just go down the drain like the regular toilet. You actually have to manually dump this shit down the drain. So I had a fun time learning how to do this. My very first experience when I set it up. So how it works is you have a bunch of tubes, right? A bunch of black tubes. You connect the tubes to the RV and you connect the other end of the tube to the sewage drain, right? The tubes that we had, we needed one more. So I had it set up, I had it hooked up, and then I realized that either the RV needed to be backed up a little bit or we needed one extra tube. Now, the RV, I couldn't back it up because I didn't have a truck or anything like that. Now, I couldn't just push it back, right? As strong as I think I am, I couldn't just push it back. So I tried to rig it. I tried to squeeze the tube as far as I could. I set up like a little like table type of thing to hold it up, and I had it connected on the sewage drain. Like it was by this much. It was barely connected, but it was there. And I'm like, all right, cool. Let me try to do this. I don't know why I tried to do this, but I tried to do it anyways. And I let it go. Sewage coming out. It gets all the way to the top, right? It was about to go to the drain. And pop, it just breaks. Next thing I know, fucking shit and piss is just about to start flowing out. I had to figure out a way to stop it and not let it all get on the ground. And I figured it out. I'm an athlete. I figured it out. Just know that. It was disgusting. I ain't have no gloves. It was nasty. But it was a lesson that I learned. I went back and I'm not gonna lie, I was pissed. We had a meeting after. I tried to do this in the morning. This is the first thing in the morning as well. So like we came back and the team's in the office and I'm like, sales training's canceled. We're not doing this today. I was mad. I was so mad. I wanted to take a shower, and towards like the end of the day, I had a session with Kesson. I was telling Kesson the story about this, and I was just laughing, right? I was laughing because I told him like, yeah, it was a shitty experience, right? And we started laughing about it. And at first I was mad, and it made me realize this is something that he told me. He's like, you know, sometimes you just have to laugh at yourself, right? You take things too serious in life. You take everything so serious, you walk around mad. If I would have let that ruin my day, like, ain't no telling what would have happened, right? But I didn't. I ended up laughing at myself, and we moved forward, right? So one of the main lessons that I learned a very important lesson the very first week that I lived in this RV. And there's just so many other lessons that I learned while living there in general, right? Like one, I had to be extremely clean, right? Because if not, it was gonna be nasty and it was gonna stink, right? It's a small space, right? So if I don't wipe something down or if I don't flush the toilet, right, the whole place is gonna stink, right? So it helped me become very organized, right? Very neat. I can go on for days on lessons that I learned while living in the RV. It was tremendous. I would go back and do it again, right? It was one of the best experiences of my life. It was really freaking tough, and it shaped me out to be who I am today, and a lot of lessons that I'm going to continue to use in the future. But it got to a point where I was feeling really tight in there. Everything was just really close. I was feeling claustrophobic, and I just needed to be able to expand, right? I needed to be able to grow, and I just felt like I was going crazy in that RV. I'm not gonna lie. So I had to make it happen, right? And I got an opportunity to take over somebody's lease in this apartment right here. So I'm like, look, I love creative finance. I love taking over mortgages. I am an entrepreneur, so it's tough for me to prove my income anyways. Why not? I'm like, let me take over this lease. Let me go live luxury for till the end of this lease and just continue to live my life, right? But I was super grateful that I had this launchpad experience to live in this RV, really toughen it out for a few months, and I learned some valuable lessons in that short amount of time that I'm gonna take with me for the rest of my life. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Subscribe, like the video for me. I'll see y'all tomorrow.
I'm in a whip, so I gotta zoom.
Peace.
Talk, they not in a room. I've been so real, I'm down to the tomb. They in the